Okay, for 5.7. Okay, so we're on unit 5.7.
Hi, YouTube.
Okay, we're going to work on solve using quadratic formulae. Solve using the quadratic formulae. So, remember, there's 3 different ways that you can solve a quadratic equation. Okay? Actually, before we get into this, does anyone remember, how do you know if something is a quadratic equation? No.
Wait.
A quadratic equation is anything with an x squared in it. Right? Anything with an x squared. Typically, it is in ax squared plus bx plus c form. Okay? Typically, yes, it is an ax squared plus bx plus c form. Right? But technically, a quadratic equation is anything that has an x squared in it. Really?
Oh.
There you go. Right. So, what we're gonna work on today is solve using the quadratic formula. Can anyone tell me what is the quadratic formula? Would anyone like to sing it for us?
Hold up. I have it in my notes somewhere. But I will
Okay,
not
David, go ahead. Go ahead.
Is it x equals x?
No.
X
David.
equals negative b plus or minus, right?
Hey, I can't hear him. Go.
X equals minus b, or minus square root.
Sing it.
You have to sing it.
Let me do my head for a second.
Okay. X equals negative b plus or minus radical b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
We should make it a rap.
All over 2a.
Great. So that's the quadratic formula. Okay? Quadratic formula. So for example number 1. I probably shouldn't. Okay, for example number 1, I'd like you to solve, and all of your instructions are going to say solve. Solve x squared minus 5x equals 7. X squared minus 5x equals 7. So, some general guidelines, not necessarily about quadratic formula, but solving in general, okay? Solving overall. First thing you want to do when you're solving in any type of question is try to factor and set equal to 0, okay? Try factor and set equal to 0, okay? If you look at this, do you think this is going to be factorable? Is anything going to multiply to 7 and add to negative 5? No. Okay, so there's no way you should do that kind of solving here. The next thing you want to look for is if the middle term, what is the middle term? What letter is it? The middle term is what?
B.
The b. Okay, or excuse me, if the coefficient of the middle term, the b, is even, okay, if it's an even number, you want to use complete the square. Okay, so if the middle term is even, you want to use complete the square. If the middle term is odd, okay, if middle term, which again is the b value, if the middle term is odd, you want to use quadratic formula. And the reason is, if generally for most people, completing the square is the easiest way to solve, okay? But if you have an odd number in the middle, you're going to end up with weird fractions, okay? And you don't want to deal with factoring with fractions. Most people don't want to deal with factoring with fractions. Okay? So this one, since it's odd, we want to use the quadratic formula. Before you can use the quadratic formula, what does your equation have to equal? 0. So that means everything on one side. So to start with, this one we're going to start by moving the 7. So just move the 7. Whenever you're writing these, try to make sure that they're written in descending order. And I'm talking about descending exponent. So it's always the x squared, then the x term, then the number by itself. Okay, so before you can solve, it has to be equal to 0. Then you have to identify your ABCs. So here your A value is what? 1. Your B value is -5, and our C value is -7. Okay, then you're going to plug into the quadratic formula. If it helps you, I would write down the quadratic formula like every single time. Okay, because that is a formula that you should have memorized. So from here, let's plug in. So x equals -b, so -5 plus or minus radical b squared, so -5 squared, minus 4 times, what do I plug in for a? 1 times c value is -7, all over 2 times your a value of 1. So it isn't that the quadratic formula is necessarily difficult, it's just lengthy and people make a lot of just careless errors in here. So that's the reason that the quadratic formula is generally kind of your last resort in solving. So here -5 gives you a +5, plus or minus radical -5 squared is 25. -4 times 1 times -7 gives you what? +28. Seriously? +28 over what?
2.
Over 2. Then simplify that. We got 5 plus or minus. What's 25 plus 28? 53. Radical 53 over 2. Now, if you can, you have to break this down. Can you break down 53? Can you break that down? No. So you're done. That's the answer that we're looking for. That's your answer. Questions on how I did that? Are we good? Ish? Good? Ish? Okay, let's try to solve. All of these equations are going to ask you to solve, or all of the instructions here are going to be to solve. Solve 3x squared. Solve 3x squared equals x minus 7. Solve 3x squared equals x minus 7. Keep in mind that I am actually looking at your test right now, so these may or may not be very close to test questions. Okay, so here, what would I want to do first? Move everything to one side. So start by moving the x and the 7. So move it to one side. Make sure you write things in descending order, so the squared term first, then the letter by itself, then the number by itself, equal to 0. Do we think that this is going to be factorable? No. Okay. It's also an odd number, so you wouldn't want to use complete the square. So you're kind of forced to use quadratic formula to solve. So here, the a value is what? 3. B value is -1, and C value is 7. Then plug into the quadratic formula. So if you need to, you can write it down. I'm more than happy to sing you the song. Does anyone need me to sing them the song? Okay, would you like the Pop Goes the Weasel or the Jingle Bells version?
Jingle bells.
Jingle Bells. It is the holiday season, right? So it's x, oh, I should write it down, sorry. X equals -b plus or minus radical b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
Yay!
Thanks. Yeah. Good job. Oh, you didn't have to clap. I was just doing it. Yay. Great. Now let's plug this in. So -b is -1 plus or minus radical b squared, so -1 squared, minus 4 times a value of 3, c value of 7, over 2 times 3. Simplified gives you 1 plus or minus radical 1 squared is 1. -4 times 3 times 7 gives us what? I would probably start with a 3 and 7. 3 and 7 is 21. Times negative 4 is negative 84. Over 2 times 3 is 6. 1 plus or minus, radical 1 minus 84 is negative 83. In all the units that we've done up until now, you would say this is no solution. But now we know i's. Now we know imaginary numbers, so what can we do here? Take out an I. Is there anything else you can take out of a radical 83?
No. 84.
No. So 1 plus or minus I root 83 over 6. And that's it. We did 1 minus 84.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So we simplified a little bit. Questions on how I did that? Are we good?
Yep.
Okay, 2 more and then we'll be done. Question? Good?
Yeah.
Okay, 2 more and then we'll be done. Example number 3. Again, I am going to ask you to solve. Okay, solve x squared plus 4x equals negative 2. X squared plus 4x equals negative 2. X squared plus 4x equals negative 2. Where would we start? Add the 2. Leaves you with x squared plus 4x plus 2 equals 0. Try to factor this. Does anything multiply to 4 or 2 and add to 4?
No.
No. Now, you could use complete the square here, but I will tell you absolutely for sure there is a question on your test. There's one that specifically says solve by completing the square, so that is the only way that I will take your answer, is if you show that work. Even if you get the right answer without showing the correct work for complete the square, I'm not giving you the answer, or I'm not giving you the credit. Same thing on one like this one, says solve using the quadratic formula. So even though there are other ways you could solve, I want you to show me the quadratic formula on this. So label your ABCs. So A is 1, B is 4, C is 2. Would anyone like to sing the quadratic formula for a late homework class?
Okay.
I'll do it
Okay.
this time.
Sam, did you want to do it?
You can all do it as a chorus,
No?
maybe?
Yeah.
Let's do it as a
I will allow multiple ones. Okay, but no talking. Okay, listen. Okay, David, go.
Yeah, pause this peanuts though.
Go ahead.
For a reason, Angel.
What we're doing to sing recording.
Sing the quadratic formula.
Don't worry, man, I got
X
you.
equals minus b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
That wasn't really singing. That's not what.
You rapped it.
Okay, that was.
That was lame. That wasn't.
He's
Whatever.
Busta Rhymes.
Would anyone like to improve upon
So I don't
that?
get a homework pass?
You will.
Busta Rhymes.
Eventually.
Sure, you can do it as a duet.
Angel,
Sure.
What?
Ever.
I didn't agree.
Okay,
with this.
Thomas.
Oh, yes.
I'll do it. But
Do
Minus
it.
b plus or minus square. Oh.
You can't just.
All over 2a.
No, that was wrong, first off. Okay, let's sing it. Try it again, because I
everybody.
missed some letters there. Go ahead.
Okay. So,
Just read the Yu-Gi-Oh card right on the.
no.
X equals.
Yes, I'm getting there. X equals minus b plus or minus square root x, minus 4ac all over 2a.
That, okay, sure.
It's
Anyone else have a rendition they would like to give
I think
us?
Keyshawn needs to try and rap.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen. Anyone else? Sam, Angel, duet.
All right.
Okay, go for it.
Duet, bro.
Count off. You're
What?
Go, come on.
Alright, 1, 2.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Come on, let's go. You guys are wasting video time.
okay.
Alright, 4, 2.
X equals
Negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
Very nice. That was the best yet. Okay, So now let's actually use the quadratic formula. So plug in, that gives you negative 4 plus or minus radical b squared, so 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 2 over 2 times 1. Simplified, negative 4 plus or minus b squared is 16 minus 4 times 1 times 2 is 8, so minus 8 over 2. Negative 4 plus or minus radical 8 over 2. Where do we go from there?
You've got to reduce.
We do have to reduce, but what do you have to do first? Can I just reduce this 8 and 2? No.
Or you can reduce 2 square root 2 over 2.
You have to break this down. So this would be negative 4 plus or minus, what's the square root of 8?
2.
2 root 2.
Yeah.
And we have to make these two separate fractions. So over 2 and over 2. That reduces to be what? Negative 4 over 2 reduces to be what? Negative 2. Still plus or minus.
Root 2.
Then what? These go away. So negative 2 plus or minus radical 2. Okay, last one. And I'm going to ask you to just find this, or excuse me. For number 4, I'm going to ask you what are the solutions to? What are the solutions to? Let's try, sorry, I lost my place. X squared minus 4x plus 3 equals negative 5. What are the solutions to x squared minus 4x plus 3 equals negative 5? And you may solve this by any method you'd like.
I have a problem.
Did you go, are you going there? Check in 21.
That is prob. I call it problem.
Okay. Okay, so for this, what's the first thing you want to do? Move everything over. So start by adding 5. Okay, if you add 5, that leaves you with x squared minus 4x plus 8 equals 0. Sorry. So can you factor this? Is there anything that multiplies to 8 and adds to negative 4?
No.
No. How would we like to solve this? Would you like, we have two other options. You could either use the quadratic formula or complete the square. I am not telling you which way you have to do this one.
Complete the square.
Okay, who would prefer, okay, you try to solve this however you'd like. So try to solve it, we'll see if we come up with the same answers. Start now. Go ahead.
Oh, no.
Do work. Do something, please. Did you get the same answer that I did? Except that I did it twice. Okay, so either way you do this, using the quadratic formula or using complete the square, you can come up with the right answer. It's actually a little bit simpler to do complete the square because there's not nearly as many steps and you don't have to reduce at the end. Okay, so either way you do this is fine. So some of these questions you can solve multiple different ways. Homework for today is you're going to be working on page 296. You were doing numbers 3 through 30, multiples of 3. Okay, multiples of 3. So that means count by threes. So like 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, keep counting by threes until you get to 30.
So we only have 3 problems tonight.
So you really only have 11 problems tonight, yeah. Okay, you are going to work now, please. Okay, you are going to work now.
Wait.